Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And today I'm going to be making some pizza just for me and Patrick, but it'll probably last us for a couple of nights. But anyway, so I'm going to be shooting two videos. I already did the one on how I make the Italian sausage to go on top of the pizza, which I already have done for this one. And you can find that video right up here. This video is going to be about how I make the sauce, because the way I do it for the pizza sauce is just a little bit different. It's still my basic recipe, though it's not always exactly the same because I do a little bit different things every time. And I don't measure, I just throw my herbs and my spices in there. And sometimes I like to get a little creative and try something new and different. And that's what I'm going to be doing today with the pizza sauce. Later today, shooting a video on making a pizza crust. So be watching for that video to come out shortly after this one. I can't say it will be the next day, but it should be close. Okay, so I'm going to bring you over here and I'll show you what we got. Okay, so this is all going to be from food storage, which is the way I make most of my sauces, gravy, soups, and things like that. And the first thing I'm going to do is start off with a jar. These are from 2016 of my home canned tomatoes. And yes, the band is on here, but I want you to hear this. It's very loose. In some certain cases, I will put the bands back on after everything is washed and well cleaned and dried, and then I'll put the bands on loosely. And that's for a specific reason. So if you're interested in knowing how I store my foods, you know, before your heads explode, if you're a canning Nazi, just teasing. Anyway, you can check out my video right up here about how I store my home canned goods. Okay, so starting with this quart jar, this is actually going to give us way more sauce than we need for pizza. So some of it will be used later for spaghetti. In a couple of days, I'll just put some of it in the fridge and then save it, or I can freeze it for later and I'll save it for spaghetti, but then I'll add different stuff to it when I do that. So what I start with in this is I like to put in, these are my own homegrown and dried tomato flakes. And if you're interested in how I make these, I'll go ahead and link to those right up here. And the reason I do this is because this is one way I can thicken up my sauce without having to cook it for such a long period of time. And I don't have to buy or make tomato paste, because I prefer, as I've said before, I prefer not to buy tomatoes that are store-bought in cans. Other canned foods, not so much, but tomatoes, I really, even if they're organic and all that, I try to avoid the canned ones. So that's why I can all my tomatoes, even if I have to buy tomatoes at the produce stand and can them myself. You know, I do grow my own tomatoes, but I never grow quite enough that I need to get us through the whole year and all the things I make with tomatoes. Okay, so then I'll just stir those in. There's no need to powder those up because they were already processed before they were dehydrated, and they will just break up while they're cooking and help thicken up the sauce. I'm going to talk about some other things you can do to thicken up the sauce, and some of this is going to be a new thing I'm trying for this particular sauce today. But let's start with the herbs. The herbs I always like to use when I'm making any kind of Italian sauce are basil. I'll put as much as a tablespoon or so. You can see I have a quart jar of the tomatoes, so you'll have to just, since I don't measure, you're going to have to just take a guess at what's best for you. You might want to just add a little bit at a time if you're new to this, and then find out, you know, if you want to add more, then just keep adding another pinch in. I use roughly about a tablespoon of each. This is oregano. This is all homegrown oregano here. My basil isn't all homegrown. I actually buy some of it on Amazon. I think it's the Frontier or Star West, one of the two, that I get by the pound, and I mix them together because I go through quite a bit of basil. But oregano, I do not need to buy anymore. We grow way more than I need. And same thing with the rosemary. I supplement what I grow with the organic stuff I can buy online. So I'm putting about a tablespoon of that in. Another thing I recommend you can use in conjunction with the rosemary, or in place of the rosemary, are your dried lavender leaves. And I have a whole video just on dried lavender leaves and their uses, and I'll link to that right up here. But since I didn't get them out this time, I'm not going to bother with those in this. So now moving on to some other things. Garlic, lots of garlic. So again, this is all from food storage, things I've either dried myself or bought, freeze-dried or dehydrated from Mother Earth products and other places. So I've got the garlic I do get at Costco, the granulated garlic. So I put in at least a tablespoon. I'm saying that's probably closer to 2 tablespoons of that. Then I also like to use the garlic slices. These are the ones I get from Mother Earth. I've been buying these for years from them, and I love them so much. I do grow garlic, but I like to use my garlic fresh. I like to buy the dehydrated stuff to supplement that, just like other things. Same thing with the onions. These are the Mother Earth products, and if you saw my video on that, you'll see that garlic and onions I got a lot of, and I love them so much. So I put in a couple tablespoons of each of those, the garlic and the onions. Now, the garlic slices that are going in here, that's the biggest pieces of food I'm going to put in here. Some other things I like to do when I'm making an Italian sauce is to use the dehydrated carrots that I also get from Mother Earth products. But I'm not going to put these right in the sauce this time. I'm going to do something a little bit different. Even though these are pretty small, I'm going to do something different with those. I'll get to that in a minute. Now for salt, this is the Himalayan pink salt, or you can use red mineral, which is my favorite. I'm going to put in about a teaspoon of that. So again, tailor it to suit your needs as far as any of this stuff is concerned. You may not have, we like lots of flavor, so I tend to use a lot more of the herbs and spices than maybe some people will use. Another option that I do when it's just the two of us or my sons is to put in a good tablespoon of red pepper flakes. Love those red pepper flakes. Okay, now for spices, that's pretty much it. Now the other thing I like to put in my sauce, and this is one of the reasons that I make my homemade wine, is homemade wine. Now right here I have blackberry. I only brought these ones out so you can see the difference in color. This is grape made from fresh grapes from our garden. This is a blackberry and grape made from wild picked blackberries and grapes that I had frozen from our garden. And then this one is just grape, but these were frozen. So interestingly, the difference in color, I'll go ahead and insert a picture here so you can see the fresh grapes and the frozen grapes make a completely different color. Same grapes, the frozen ones for some reason turn a little bit pink. So these ones I like to save because the flavor of them is the best, these two. So I'm saving these more for making flavored extracts. This is the one, though it still tastes really good, though not quite as good as these. This is the one I like to use in my sauces. So I'm going to pour about a 1/4 cup to a 1/2 cup in there, and that's just going to add a nice flavor to my sauce. Okay, and now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take these 3 things. Since this is, oh, by the way, this is also the sauce I would use in ravioli. Use a similar sauce for both pizza and ravioli. And then for spaghetti, I'm going to put more stuff in it. Like I'll put the meat and all that kind of stuff. But since with the ravioli, you've got the stuffed ravioli with the meat and cheese in it already, then I don't typically add meat to the sauce. And same thing with the pizza, I'm putting meat on top. I don't add it to the sauce. I try to keep the sauce a little more smooth. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my coffee grinder that I bought. I have 2 coffee grinders. One I got at a garage sale. It was brand new, never used, for $4. Liked it so much that I bought a second one, new. I'll go ahead and link to it below, so that I could use this one strictly for vegetables and fruits and things like that, and then keep my other one dedicated just for grinding my coffee. And so I am going to put in some of these Mother Earth dehydrated mushrooms, some of my homegrown and dehydrated zucchini, about a handful of each, and then same thing again with the carrots. Now the purpose of this, the mushroom is more for adding some flavor to the sauce. The carrots and the zucchini is for adding more nutrition and just giving me more places I can use that zucchini up. So I'll be, this next year, if I get a lot of zucchini like I did last year, I'm going to probably be dehydrating most of it because there's so many uses for it dehydrated, like this diced up small. Turning it into a powder, I've got recipes on a bread recipe where I've added it to the bread and it makes a really good bread. And I might actually do that in the pizza crust that I make today as well. But definitely in the sauce, this will actually do three things. It will add more flavor, more nutrition, and it's another way to help thicken that sauce up. And then if the sauce starts to get too thick, well, you can always add a little bit more homemade wine or some water to it if you decide it's just, okay, that's just too thick for me to spread on the pizza. So I'm gonna put this on the base. I'm gonna go ahead and process these up, and then I'm gonna add it to the sauce. Now you see that got pretty powdery. I don't know if you can see that little cloud coming out there. But anyway, we'll pour that in there. It's okay if there's still some chunks in there. This was just to make it a little bit smaller to make a little smoother sauce. Now, when I'm making sauce for spaghetti and I use carrots or zucchini or anything like that, I just throw them in whole. I don't bother to process them up. I just take handfuls and put them right in the sauce as is. And that's, again, it gives more texture to the sauce too for spaghetti, as well as just adding more nutrition and flavor. Okay, so let's make sure I didn't forget anything. I think that's all my ingredients. Basil, oregano, rosemary. Those are the three main herbs I like to use in my Italian sauces. You can add others if you like. Some people may like thyme. Some people might like sage. Those aren't really so much considered Italian type flavors, but they can still taste really good. It's just entirely up to you. You don't have to make it my way or any one person's way. That's, like I said, my sauce changes a little bit all the time. I've been making my own Italian sauce since I was in my teens and didn't have anyone teach me. I just kind of started doing it and making it up as I went, and I suppose perfecting it over the years. But then again, that's, you know, since I'm always changing it and experimenting with it, it can always be just a little bit different. Now, some people will like to add a little bit of sugar to their sauce. I personally don't. I prefer to leave the sugar out, but that's an option. Just make sure you go with a good, organic, healthier type sugar. I don't prefer my sauces to be sweet. So now all I got to do is put this on my wood stove and just simmer it for a couple of hours and let it get good and thick. And when my pizza crust is ready, this will be ready to spread. And if you don't have a wood stove, see, I don't always keep track of the temperature. If this wood stove is really hot, I set it up on a trivet. If it's cooler, I just set it directly on the wood stove and keep an eye on it. If you don't have a wood stove and you're using a conventional stove, just put it on low and let it simmer for a couple hours. And you probably don't even need to do that because of all this goodness. Now, there is something about the more you cook tomatoes, the more lycopenes it releases and stuff like that. On the other hand, less cooked gives you more nutrients, so you got to balance that out. The standard old-fashioned way of doing Italian sauces to let them cook for a whole day, even 2 days, to really let the flavors get in there. And I used to do that. Years ago. I don't do that anymore. I just usually let it cook for a few hours, and then it gets good and thick. In fact, it's already getting pretty thick just as is. In fact, I may need to add more liquid to it, but we'll see what happens. So it's as simple as that. That's how you make your Italian sauce. Again, just let it cook until it's the right consistency. If you need to add more water or a little more wine to get it a little thinner because maybe it gets too thick, just go ahead and do that. Whatever you have left over, the next day you can just add some ground beef, ground elk, ground venison that you've browned, and some mushrooms and olives if you like those things, and then use it as a spaghetti sauce. So there you go. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something new. Thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.